Welcome to another episode of Through the Glass. I'm very happy to have my friend Rob Thorp, filmmaker, educator, recent award winner of Best Screenplay at the Garden State Film Festival, a teacher of English and film at Bridgewater Raritan High School, and we're going to get into it today. Rob, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. Tell me a bit about this film festival award. How does that happen? How does one win Best Feature Screenplay at the Garden State Film Festival?
A lot of luck, I'm guessing. No, I don't know. Submitted it, didn't have a lot of kind of hopes that anything would happen. It was just kind of like, hey, you know what? I have this script. I like it. I'm going to push it out there and see what happens. And I guess it was early February. I got a phone call, and they said that they loved it and they wanted to take it for the festival. And yeah, I mean, I think when you sometimes write, you're writing in a vacuum. As a writer, you're never really sharing your work too many times, so you never really know what you have. And I guess this story just for whatever reason hit for them.
Tell me a bit about the story. So yeah, tell me a bit about the story.
It's the well that always works, the family well. The void you come from, the void you go back to. I just always drawn to the family. I think it's endless. So I wrote a story about the prodigal son, kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, Harry George idea, but modern day. Younger brother's been off the grid for about 15, 20 years since college, bouncing around from commune to alternative lifestyle, and gets kicked out of his last commune for one too many pranks, civil disobedience, and he has nowhere to go. And he goes back home to New Jersey where his aging baby boomer parents are living, and childhood home, the whole thing, and their neuroses, their empty nesting is in full bloom, and he's just going to ride it out for a couple of days. He's just going to be there for Thanksgiving, he thinks, and he just gets sucked back in. And his older brother, who's like a lot of older brother energy, angry, he gets confronted by the older brother, by the parents, all the people he left behind. Now that he's sort of back home, he has to deal with all that stuff. And it's about that. It's about dealing with stuff, family stuff.
I think everybody can connect to family stuff.
Yeah.
What were you, the well that you drew from, how much of that did you draw from your own life?
In the big way, not much, more like idiosyncrasies. My dad, when he's mad, he always says balls. For whatever reason, that's just his go-to curse.
Give us an example. How does it
it'll
work?
be very sudden. Like he'll walk and all of a sudden you're balls. And just like you have to go and you find my dad and he's stepped on a Matchbox car. That was left over from 20 years ago. It's very abrupt, and that's it. That's usually as heated as it gets, but it means a lot. There's a lot of things inside of the balls. A lot of different curses exist inside of it. So I pulled from his sort of like abrupt anger. That goes away really quick too. So it's very like shocking kind of dad, and my mom is very kind of free spirited. So I pulled like little physical things from each of them. Like my mom will laugh a lot to the point where she'll pee her pants. So I had the mom pee her pants a little bit. The older brother, when my brother was younger, he used to lift weights all the time. So I have like a scene where the older brother gets jacked up in the basement, and I just pulled like these physical characteristics more than like personality, like who they are now. Type of things from it, and that was just a fun way to color my characters.
How did you get into storytelling? It sounds like you had a colorful upbringing, but maybe not out of the ordinary at the same time. So
no, exactly,
what drew you to storytelling? Was it an innate need to make things up, or to share, or to put a twist on things that were happening in your life, or was it being inspired from other storytellers?
Everything you just said makes sense to me, honestly. My parents, specifically my mom, storytellers. They're sitting around the table storytelling. That's just kind of how everything got passed down, and still is. And I noticed pretty early on that people, like you said, they'll color it a little bit, or you'll add stuff, take stuff away, and I was always fascinated by that. And I just love listening, and I'm the youngest of three, so it took a while for me to tell my own stories. I was more of the listener, the absorber, and then as I got into maybe high school and college, I just started to dabble in my own versions and fell in love with that kind of reinterpreting stories. And it's like history, you know. I learned about even myself through stories. You know, my sister and brother will bring up stories constantly, and they're like, oh, I remember that now, you know. And it's a really cool way of having history happen too.
There's entire cultures that have gone on through centuries strictly through oral history. It's a way to retain history, to touch history, and to keep people connected to things. That's a really good point. What form did the stories take? I remember when I started, I probably started around the same time, maybe late high school, early college is when I stared writing.
Like music writing? What were you doing?
No, I was writing poetry.
Cool.
Music, I had been writing music, not lyrics, probably since since I could hold a guitar, just trying to copy the bands I was into, learn a few songs that my mother was playing with her group, and then by 15 I was playing clubs and all that. But I wasn't writing the story. I was just trying to put a melody to the story.
Got it.
I didn't have any interest in telling a story because my hands were already full.
That's a lot.
Trying to just not suck.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep a guitar in tune, like little shit like that.
Oh yeah.
Which for most teenagers is a major fucking thing.
Major.
And so no, it took the form of poetry. I was reading a good amount of poets, and then I said, well, I want to try that.
Yeah.
I didn't connect it to music at first, and not for many years. So,
having heard your stuff, I see it now. I hear it now, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What form was yours taking when you were
honestly poetry too? Yeah, I didn't bang out screenplays when I was like 16. I didn't know anything about screenplays. So yeah, poetry. My mom writes. It's part of the Raritan Poets back in the day. It was like a municipal, they'd meet at the library type of thing. And yeah, so like something immediate like that. You're a teenager, so it was poetry for the most part. A little bit of music, lyrics that were terrible. I was dabbling at that point. I wasn't sure where my art was going to land, and it wasn't until probably, end of high school that I settled on screenwriting. But it was a lot of poetry. I didn't even do short stories or anything until much later.
What kind of poetry were you writing?
Just free verse, very dramatic.
Yeah,
sure.
No doubt dramatic.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, I don't remember, to be honest. I still have it probably somewhere, but yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't appreciate or are just not aware of what a gigantic undertaking making a film is. I've dabbled in many industries. When I was in college, I studied film for a short while, ended up more in the video side of it and the audio side of it, and that's what I worked in for just about all of my adult life. But I had to take filmmaking classes. I had to learn how to load cameras and dark bags. I had to learn how to edit film. I had to learn how to sync sound with film. And the amount of work it took to make a 3-minute short film was astonishing to me. The amount of time, effort, the amount of failures is astronomical. And the fact that you need 1 million people helping you out at all times who are willing to work for nothing. Mm-hmm. It's, maybe aside from being a school teacher, it's interesting that you do both. Those are huge scope jobs. Give a taste of what it takes to, quote unquote, make a film. Because my experience with it, the few people I knew who were able to actually have a feature film out that you could go view, going from 0 all the way to 10, it takes a very special person. It takes unlimited patience, skill, grit. Probably grit is probably the biggest personal attribute, and you need some kick-ass talented friends who have as much patience and grit as you do, particularly with editing and wrangling actors and just making sure it looks cool and it looks real, because you could put in all of that time and get something back that just looks
you could do it. It might not look like a movie though, but yeah, I'm sure my first one looked kind of like that. So
can you take folks through? I know there's a lot of people interested in this industry, and as someone who's done it and is doing it and succeeding in it, Can you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, it's everything you said. I think the thing is important to know is, there's no one way, but I think grit is big. I think in the first feature I did, it was just getting the ship into the harbor, no one falls off the boat, and that's it. You're like, okay, I did that. And then along the way, and then when you're done, you look back and you say all the bad things you did and all the mistakes and all that. But yeah, it takes all the things you mentioned. I think the main thing is just being able to draw people into it, because especially in the level I'm at, where it's just, independent, guerrilla style filmmaking pretty much still is not saying, well, you're a film person, let's make a movie, but you're really creative, want to do the wardrobe. Bill Shalavis, my producing partner, he hadn't gone to film school, but he was recording bands and making music, so we worked together on something, and it's like, oh wow, he's really great at this stuff, that we partnered up. He's good.
Shout out to Bill Shalavis and his band, Some Grackles,
Definitely.
who recorded some music here at Lake House Recording Studios. I love those guys.
Yeah, amazing.
Shout out to Bill and the rest of the band too.
Yeah, and just bringing people on that are creative, have something to give, and want to give something and work with you, and that's my favorite part of creating. It's just collaboration, and I think seeing it through, caring about your story and your vision is the main thing. Like, if you have a vision, you probably are in a good spot. I think a lot of people just think, oh, I have to make a movie, or I need to do this, or I need to do it by this age or this time or whatever. But if you have a point of view, that's a good start.
I see that a lot in music here at the studio, where most musicians, or someone who plays an instrument or likes to sing or likes to write, they all want to record. And there's a lot of stumbling blocks along the way to having an idea and actually having a finished product. And usually, often the disconnect is the vision, not having a clear vision of the song. And a lot of times that will just break down to the arrangement of the music, parts, for lack of a better word, and the lyrics. What are you trying to say? Even if it's like metal or something where it's like, well, I'm not sure who's focusing in on the lyrics. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. You need to be focused in on that, so you can see it through and know what's working and what's not working. How hard of a transition was that for you, to, amidst all the technical things that are going on? Oh my God, it's freaking raining out. We were going to shoot that scene outside. Oh my God, this is we're supposed to get the sunrise and we missed it.
It happens.
To get that, what's that, the magic light?
Yeah,
what do they call it?
Golden hour, magic hour.
The magic hour, golden hour.
Yeah.
How hard is it to keep an eye on your vision, and at the same time an eye on the myriad technical things that need to come together?
Trusting the people. I mean, I think the first movie, you're just learning everything, and you have to kind of accept that in real time, that you're not going to get certain things right. But having a vision is number one. Just, you have to have it, and then you have the ability to communicate that vision to others. Like, it's one thing to have it in your head and be a mad genius, but if you can't explain it, what good is it? And then the third part is that kind of technical understanding. And I think trusting your cinematographer, that you've done the work beforehand and explained your vision, months before you're even on the set, and then knowing when you get there 4 months later that you are on the same page. And I was lucky enough to work with a DP that we're very connected, and we speak in kind of tones and colors a lot. That's kind of how he operates, and I operate sometimes too. He's like very kind of vibe oriented, which I appreciate. So I think trusting the people that you're working with to just do what they're supposed to do.
DP meaning director of photography.
Correct.
We got to explain the terms here.
Sorry,
director
of photography.
We're not all film geeks.
Yeah, so they're not always the same. Sometimes you just have a cinematographer who, you as the director, you kind of tell them a lot, like, go shoot this, go shoot that. Whereas a director of photography, you're really trusting them to direct the photography of the film and to own that big part of it. And it's a lot more collaborative than a traditional, director with a megaphone setup, where, that way, let them own that part of it, and if you have the right person, then it's great.
That correlates in the music industry to working with an engineer as opposed to working with a producer.
Okay.
Some artists want to come in and they just want or require a recordist. Just do what I tell you to do, and you trust that they're going to be able to, from a technical standpoint, nail it and get exactly what you're talking about. And then there's working with a producer, where it's like you're talking about your vision, and ultimately you're handing over a lot of the small details, which eventually add up to gigantic details, to be that liaison between your brain, your heart, and the final product. What is the relationship like between a director and a director of photography, and how many have you worked with?
I've only worked with one. His name is Nick Capra. Shout out to Nick. He's amazing. He shot a couple of days on our first feature. I shot the majority of it myself, and whenever he was on set, it felt different. And he comes with that. He went to school for cinematography. Like that's where he is. That's where he lives. And the relationship is tough. It can be really hard, I think, if you don't have the right people, because some directors of photography are like frustrated directors themselves. Sometimes they won't collaborate, and sometimes they get locked in. Well, we have this shot, we planned it out, and I come in and I say, well, let's go over here. So it can be a little tough at times, but not for me, not with Nick. It's been great. So I think it's just communication. He's a musician, he's an artist in his own right, a filmmaker in his own right. So he gets all of it, and he edits, and he does sound. He knows the whole thing. So there's times when I could just say, like, you call it, you call action, you call cut. I'm going to be over here dealing with something else. And that felt great, to be able to trust your director of photography, to do so much.
So his name is Frank Capra?
Nick.
Any relation to the famous director?
No.
Frank, am I saying it right? Frank Capra?
Yeah, Frank Capra. No.
Who was crushing it back in the day. Was that in the 40s?
Yeah.
The 1940s?
Yeah, all that stuff. No relation. Just a good last name.
He probably feels the weight of it, though.
Probably, yeah. You can see it in his eyes.
He doesn't want to fuck up.
He's like, I can't mess up.
The film that you recently won Best Feature Screenplay at the Garden State Film Festival. Now, that is a film that has not begun production yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. That's the Boy Roach. It's just a screenplay at this point. And yeah, it's at a few festivals, has a few more to get into, and just going to see where it goes for now.
What's the next step? How do you go from having a screenplay that you're happy with, and obviously the industry, however that's defined, accepts it and gives it some props? What's the next step to begin production?
I mean, first is just deciding we want to do it or not. I produce with Bill, and we kind of pitch each other different ideas, like what we should do next, and it kind of works like that. Like, we just have to agree that that's the next movie, and then once we do that, our process is pretty much, I think it's pretty traditional for a lot of independent filmmakers. We raise money, we look at locations, we look at actors, we go through the whole thing, like a big studio would, just at a very small level.
Would you consider having someone else direct your screenplay? Is that something that you've thought or dabbled with?
I have thought about it. I think in the right circumstance I would, yeah. If they could lift it off the ground better than me and could attract, things that I couldn't, I would be okay with that. Yeah, I just want to see it out there. There's certain things you don't. And this one's on the line because it's personal. So I wouldn't just be, okay, here's X amount of dollars. That wouldn't work for me. But if it could be done better, then yeah, for sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So to switch gears to a film that is wrapping production right now. So you're in post-production for Shark River.
Yeah. Can
you talk a little bit about the film Shark River? And I assume that's related to Shark River, the area that we're living in and that we're in right now.
Yeah, you're right there.
I'm right there. I grew up on the border of Shark River Hills and Neptune. Really, Shark River Hills is Neptune. And all the lore of the Shark River. How did it get that name?
Yeah,
and
fascinating.
This old story of this gigantic shark in the Matawan section.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that film and where you're at right now, and when folks can expect to see that film and where?
Yeah, sure. So we're, like you said, we're in post-production. We're just editing all the footage together right now. We're finishing up the rough cut, which is really where you just, put it together A through Z, no music, nothing like that, just a kind of assembly, and we're wrapping that now. We should be done in August. The final cut will probably a couple more weeks after that, just to fine-tune it. The goal being, submit it to festivals, see where it lands, see if people like it, get some people to take a look at it. And then I think the ultimate goal is, like most films, you want as many people to see it as possible, get it on a streaming service or in theaters or both. It's not a blockbuster A-list movie, so it's not gonna have that kind of reach, but it's looking really good, and I think it's got something to it. So I could see people maybe digging into parts of it.
What is the general plot of Shark River?
General plot is a young couple goes off the grid to get married. They elope in a kind of undisclosed. I never really say where it is. It's in my mind. It's like in Vermont or something. And while they're there, it's one of these hotels, like no TV, like on purpose kind of thing. And while they're literally kind of getting dressed, you start to get hints that something's off. And about 10 minutes later, when they're about to do their vows, you find out that the whole like country is like plunged into chaos. Like, you know, that like PBS, like Channel 13 alarm that when we were kids, like would go off. Remember that thing? Like, yeah, that. Like that starts playing, and it's not a sci-fi movie. I don't really go into it, but I guess in our current world, you don't need to go too far to think anything could happen anytime. So I kind of leave that in the background, and they have to flee, and they have to go back home to Shark River. That's where they're headed. It's one of like the safe spots is Jersey. For some reason, I can't imagine why Jersey would be a safe spot, but it just worked for me.
Let's leave that alone.
Yeah, it just worked for the moment. But it's really a road film. Like I loved Warriors and Easy Rider and those kind of movies growing up. So I just wanted to get them on the road pretty quick. So they're on the road and then just going to Jersey, and they kind of fall in love in reverse. You know, they go to get married and they realize pretty quickly when they're on the road that they don't really know about each other, and it's just them figuring each other out amidst this kind of periodic chaos. Every once in a while, you know, they pull over and something happens, and they have to deal with these
they
things.
get updates on the status
they get
of
updates
the issue.
Yeah, and like the Warriors, you know that DJ character, the woman who kind of like narrates like them. I don't know if you remember that movie. This like gang has to get from like, I don't know, the Bronx to Coney Island or something, and there's this DJ and she's like giving you updates. So I wanted to kind of work with that. So we have this guy who is like held up in his basement, and it turns out he's like this ham radio operator, and they develop a relationship with him even though they never made him, and he's like feeding tidbits to them, and he's also taking requests even though it's like, you know, perhaps the end of the world, and he's like very strict about his radio requests. And
like songs.
Yeah, like
so he's curating a playlist for the end of the world.
Exactly the way
that's
I put
fucking
it.
awesome.
That's exactly the way I wrote it. Yeah, curating a playlist for the end of the world. Yeah,
I love that.
So she calls in and she's like, I need help. He's like, listen, there's rules. Like, you know, we can't break down all the rules just now. So what's your song? She's like, song, you know, what are you talking about? He's like, listen, exchange of values. Like, you make a request, I play a song. It's pretty simple. But
he's not having it if it's an off point request.
No, nope.
He's the and I could already picture this. It's a guy.
It's a guy.
I could already picture this guy. Yeah. He's like, he cares more than anything, and at the same time, he like hates more than anything.
All of that. Yeah.
I can already picture this person.
And he's holding on by a thread, and this is how he's holding on, you know. And then at first you think he's actually a DJ. You realize like, oh, he's in his basement. Oh man. Oh no. You start to figure out his life through his house, and you start to see what happened to him, and that's the story. Yeah.
There's an REM song. I forget maybe it's on their last album, but like, I'm gonna DJ at the end of the world. It's about this in some respect. I'll have to send you the song.
Yeah,
you should check it out. You and Michael Stipe.
There we go.
Have connected.
Let's do it
on this theme.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I'm really stoked. You know, 'cause I know you've been working on this film, and yeah. We've become friendly over the last couple years, I suppose, through music and through mutual friends. But I've followed you. I've followed the social media posts on Shark River, and it's usually just something technical and where you're at, and then there'll be a still from the film, and it always looks pretty.
Yeah.
But I never bothered to ask, hey man, what's the film about?
I'm glad, because I hate that. I hate, like, as a writer, I'm usually like, you know, I'm not good at explaining it, but because I just want the movie to.
Well, of course.
But it is fun to talk about it, because you just don't get those questions a lot either. So when you do, you're usually like, oh, I don't know how to answer it. But
well, you seem enthusiastic about it now.
I love it.
Thanks for.
I'm happy to see where it's going now too. And yeah, the posts are usually our editor Bill. He takes little snapshots of his progress when we're editing, and we release these little tiny baby pictures. You know,
Bill's a cool guy. I like him a lot. I haven't seen him in a while just because of everything that's been going on the last year and change. But yeah, I can't wait to hang out with Bill again.
Yeah, he's his driving force behind the movie is excellent, and he handles a lot of kind of nebulous stuff, you know, as a producer too. And He'll do the sound. He'll AD a shot. He was a stunt guy on the movie.
Really?
Yeah, we had to do a sunrise motorcycle scene.
Well, I know he's got a motorcycle.
Yeah,
I've seen him drive by my house a couple times.
Yeah, he's got this like 1940s looking.
Yeah, it's badass.
Enfield. It's amazing. So we knew that was the bike that was getting the film, and we woke up at like 4:00 in the morning. We went out like all the way down to Belmar, going like west Belmar Boulevard, like into Farmingdale. I don't know if that's west. Yeah.
Yeah, Farmingdale's the next hit there.
And we had a drone.
Well, that's right where he lives.
Yeah, he lives right by there. So we got him on the bike. We got a drone. We drove the car next to him, paced him. We got a drone. Like wild.
Sounds a little dangerous.
It was dangerous. Yeah. It's into filmmaking.
I never saw Bill as a risky guy, so now I see him as even more of a badass.
I'm sure he was not pleased. I remember that morning too. The face mask was fogging up. He threw the helmet a couple times. It was great. Yeah.
I dig the theme of the film too. It's connecting directly to the film of the screenplay that just won the award, which is basically you're leaving, but you need to come back to figure shit out.
Mm-hmm.
What do you go back to in your life and inside you? What do you need to go back to from time to time to ground yourself?
That's good. I think for grounding, I think it's like stepping away. I think it's saying, okay, I can take a break, because as an artist, I'm sure you can understand, like, you're just creating a lot, or I'm always seeing creation in different things, and before I know it, like, I realize, I need to like stop pulling in a little bit too.
Well, it's obsession.
Yeah, it's very obsessive.
I relate to that.
Yeah.
It's all you're thinking about.
It's all you're thinking.
It's humming.
Yeah.
Like a refrigerator. It's just humming all the freaking time.
Yeah, and I'm quiet too, so I think it's not always apparent that it's humming, but it is. So yeah, in terms of returning, it's probably the same as the movies. My family, like me and my brother and sister, are super close, so we text every morning before work. My parents are still crazy and running loose. And it's a lot of that.
Old Balls is still doing his thing.
Yeah. Exactly. I'll be talking to my mom on the phone. You hear my dad, step on a rake or something. And I'll get a text from my brother like, Dad was over. He fell, and I was like, is he all right? Yeah, of course. Didn't spill his beer. He's fine.
Yeah, a couple balls later, he's in the game.
That's it.
And your mom's peeing her pants thinking about it.
It's a perfect combo.
You've created like these cartoon characters, man. It's hysterical.
They're actually like that too.
So when you say you need to go back to really nothing, like emptiness, filmmaking, while like I said, the most I ever did was a 2.5 minute piece, which took me almost half a year.
Was it film like 16 millimeter? Or like
16 millimeter, and then sound sync camera.
Takes forever.
I was working on a moviola, and just burning money like crazy.
So expensive.
It's so expensive.
The one reel, 2.5 minutes, like $20 plus development just to have it.
I know. I was in college, and I always hustled. So I worked at the school.
Okay.
I worked in the media department, so I was the dude checking out all the gear.
Yeah.
So I had
some access,
excellent dibs on stuff. Strangely, when I started working, I applied for work study programs, so I couldn't really afford college.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to get any support from anywhere else. So it's like, all right, well, you could get these things. I didn't want to take too much financial aid out because I saw the specter of that hot mess.
Oh yeah.
Even when I was young. So I'm like, well, I'll just work at the school and go to just keep everything as modest as possible. And my first gig was working in the gym at the college, and everyone in the gym, it was the most musclehead gym ever, and it was pretty thuggish where I was, and so it was just football players and gang members.
Perfect.
And it was perfect because those guys, I made nice with those guys early on. So as a freshman, I was a young punk rocker, hardcore kid, probably even shorter than I am now, like green hair.
Oh yeah.
And I was with, the linebackers on the football team and the gang members on the other side of town, and I got in good with those guys. So on campus,
they respect gyms.
Yeah, and especially they respected the guy who was like, they're like, tell me about your music. So they just thought I was just like,
that's awesome.
I was just some crazy kid. They had a couple terms for it. We won't use any of them.
No, we
don't
won't
offend too many people.
Just balls.
But I was able to go to certain pool halls in the city that were like, you You didn't go to those places unless you were like, man, I really want to get fucked up, but not in a fun way.
Just want to have a life experience.
And I remember, like, I'd have friends come up to the college and like, hey, I want to visit you. I'm like, ooh. I'm like, well, don't bring your car.
Where was this?
This was in Jersey City, and
yeah.
it was, and this is going back some years. Yeah. And where I was, it was tough. And I'm like, do not bring your car.
Right.
Like, nothing good is going to happen to your car. But I said, but I do know a pool hall we can go to because I know a guy. And they're not going to fuck with us.
Perfect. Those are the best. Those are the best experiences.
Well, I learned early on, especially as like a smaller fellow who is generally charismatic, like, getting good with like the toughest
100%.
Psychotic dudes you can.
100%.
At least you got that one thing is covered.
Yeah.
And I always respected that too, in a way. And I found myself in situations like that a lot in my life. So yeah, working at the gym. Shout out to the college gymnasium. cleaning up sweat.
Oh yeah.
And lotion all day.
It's sexy.
It was very sexy. Yeah. I felt extremely sexy. Back to the point, you had mentioned going back to almost nothing, and I had found that for a lot of hardcore filmmakers, it's a lonely path. I know you've partnered with Bill in a very close way, and a lot of filmmakers don't have that close connection, especially earlier in their career. Is the loneliness factor of working on one thing for so long, and ultimately you're responsible for it, so if not all the weight, I'm sure Bill shares some, of course, but is it lonely, and is that a drag?
It is, but not in a bad way, not a drag. No, I mean, as a writer, specifically like the stuff we're talking about earlier, the script that won, that's just me writing. It is lonely, but in a great way. So I can moderate that a lot better when it's the film production wise. There are elements that are lonely, but yeah, Bill and I share them, so it's definitely easier to have a partner in crime. And then once everyone gets on set, it's almost the reverse problem because everyone's there, and then it's overwhelming. There's 15 people in a room, and you don't know some of them, and you're like, this guy brought that guy, and it's kind of wild.
It's just like recording sessions.
Yeah.
I didn't tell you I was bringing a backup singer.
He's like, what?
Oh,
cool. Yeah.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was like a nice problem, in the second movie. The first movie, we literally, Bill would be holding like a reflector board and doing sound. I'd be shooting. We both were making breakfast. We did everything. We had almost no crew. And the second one, there were times that we didn't know people right away. We're like, there's like 17 people here. It feels pretty cool.
A reflector board. Let's talk about that for a second. So it's one of the simplest,
it's the best,
most lo-fi tools and techniques you could use to make any film, any video, and any photograph look better. So imagine a gigantic white sheet of cardboard, everybody, and you're taking a picture, and maybe the sun is coming at an angle like this, and you're getting these undesirable shadows. Well, all you need is a human being to hold said whiteboard, and it bounces the light back up, or any angle that you need. And you don't even need a human being.
Now you tape it up sometimes.
Tape it, put it against the tree, give it to someone who just has been hanging out and you're not sure what they do. Even if they run off with it, it is just a piece of cardboard.
Yep.
It's the lowest cost item on the film, and it's a simple way to make photography, video, and film look better.
You can cover with tinfoil if you want to get weird. Real fancy.
If you want that shimmery effect, maybe you want to pretend like you're near a pool or near the ocean and you want that shimmer. Yeah, I learned all those techniques in school, and then I carried them my whole life.
You had one today. You were running around with it.
Did I?
No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, maybe I did.
He's eating
always trying to get the light,
and he's got a reflector board.
I feel like now if my lighting doesn't look even, then I'm not following my own advice. I feel like maybe I should. There's no excuse. I have no excuse.
You're trained.
I shot photography for a while. I did it on the side, but as a professional for several years. Oh, okay. And you just learn all these quick techniques, something you can do by yourself without anyone, doesn't cost any money, which is clutch. Mm-hmm. And automatically the quality goes.
Lighting, that's the jump, I think, for independent filmmakers. Lighting and sound. Those are the two things people usually abandon. It's just they go camera first, like we shot it, it's great, Then you look at it like, we didn't light it, and the sound is terrible. And then That's where you go
Yeah,
next.
like it looks cool and it doesn't look cool at all.
It looks terrible and it sounds terrible. It looks like they're on the sun. It's all washed out and it's loud and hot and it's bizarre, you know.
Those are later details for an artist
You
to
pick that
learn.
up. Yeah.
But there's so many things you can do that are easy and cheap.
100%,
And a big white sheet of something that and it will blow away.
It most certainly will blow away.
It's going to blow away many times, so please mind the wind.
Always.
When you're working with these things.
It'll hit someone, which is nice.
It's going to hit a few people.
A few, yeah.
Well, film can be dangerous, and we know that with Bill's motorcycle
Yes.
stunts. What films and filmmakers turned you on early? We were talking a little bit about Stanley Kubrick earlier before we started filming this podcast. But what are some artists and films that were like, damn?
I think I had a really good film class in high school. The teacher was very cool, and he showed us things like he would show us Fellini, and he'd show us like Paris is Burning, which is that's a risk to show in high school. Then he'd show Godfather, and then he'd show like True Romance. So he would really throw a lot at us. I remember really being pulled in by True Romance, like when I was like 17. I thought that story was really interesting. The cast of characters were really interesting. Wuthering Heights, strangely, was very influential to me.
I didn't even know they made a film out of that.
Yeah, there's a few now. There's a couple old black and white ones. I think like Montgomery Clift is in one of them. And my mom was a big fan of that. So, she would kind of bring me into like the PBS, like Sunday night, like Off Kilter, maybe like BBC programs. And my dad was big on like epics, like war films and like things like that. So I just had a lot of films being thrown at me. And at the town I grew up in, I had 3 movie theaters. So I just was overwhelmed by movies. I think, there wasn't like one that really did it for me. Stand By Me when I was a little kid was really big.
Oh, man.
I think that was a big one.
That was such an influential film for me, too.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, I need to go out on an adventure
Yeah.
right now.
It felt very real and accessible and really simple and great.
Who, do you know who wrote or directed that?
Stephen King wrote the short story that it's based on called The Body. It's in a little novella with a bunch of other shorts.
Right.
I think Shawshank's in there, too. And Rob Reiner took it and made it happen.
Rob crushed it.
He crushed it. River Phoenix. I mean, come on, man.
Everything and everyone was good in that. And maybe it was a product of my age at the time, too. I would like to see it again because, sometimes something has a huge impact on you.
It holds
and then
up.
you watch it again or listen to it again or think about it again and it changes.
It does change. It works still. I watched it 2 weeks ago and it still works.
I got to check that out. I'm going to put that on the list. My wife and I are always trying to find something to put on the list of what to see next. I think we might have to go old school with some Stand By Me.
It's great.
Are there any directors that you use as a template for directing and editing and shot composition? Are there any ones that you use as instructors?
Definitely. I think for me, I'm not sure how you do it like with albums and music, but I start with like a mood. That's usually where it starts for me. I don't usually have a plot or a character. It's just like a feeling. And that works really well with like certain directors, like pairing food or something, with alcohol. So with Shark River, it was very visual storytelling. So a lot of like Sofia Coppola, very loose, kind of open, stuff like that. I love Alex Garland. Have you ever seen Ex Machina?
No, I think someone put it on my radar and I just didn't watch it. I don't know why.
It's really cool. It's only 3 or 4 people in the whole movie. It's very
that's interesting.
Clean, kind of like beautifully written and acted.
Sterile.
It's very sterile, but it works. Yeah. It depends on the project. I try to keep my viewing in line with what I'm making at the time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it just helps to.
Well, you're trying to absorb things.
Trying to absorb and steal. I'm like, I remember, and I could kind of encyclopedically go back. I'm like, I know that scene in Stand By Me when they're walking home. I want that shot, and I could articulate to my DP, and he'd say, I know what you mean. It's a wide-angle lens or whatever. He knows how to make that happen. So that's what people
along the railroad tracks.
Yeah,
when they're
all that stuff. Yeah, and you can just if you know, if you could speak that like language with someone else and they get it, it's easier than saying, well, I want the light to come through the left side. You can say, oh no, you know the scene? Let's do that. Let's put our spin on it. And that's great. Yeah.
You and I were talking about Stanley Kubrick before we started shooting. I think he was one of the most instructive film directors for me. Not like I never thought I'd get to the point of making a feature film. I just wanted to study it a bit. Now, actually, I had to study it just to go through the program. Yeah. But I love still watching his films, every single one of them. There's not one stinker in my opinion. I mean, some like what is it? Shit. What's the crazy one about the rapist murderers that just Clockwork Orange. Yeah. I gotta really be in the mood for that. It's like
it's high Saturday afternoon special.
It's high anxiety, so I'm not always in the mood for that vibe.
Yeah.
But someone who can tell a story visually, the way that he did, and he started as a photographer for Look magazine when he was really young. He was a teenager working as a professional photographer, and then just transitioned.
You could tell. I mean, his eye is great.
You could pause his movie.
Yeah.
Any movie, and you look at it, you're like, damn, that's a painting there. And then, of course, it got more refined as he got older, and some of those later films.
Wes Anderson's kind of like that too. That kind of, it's like a painting, a photograph kind of vibe.
That's a really good call. I never thought about
more whimsical, obviously, and playful, but still.
Wes Anderson, totally. So from a visual standpoint, him and Kubrick, wow, I never made that
a lot.
Yeah. Except where they are complete opposites is on sort of the Wes Anderson, this sort of witty, dry, very intelligent, highbrow humor and sarcasm, very elite sort of situations, and that's what's funny, and it's also what some people connect with as well. Whereas Kubrick, I think wanted to evaporate the sarcasm, evaporate the emotion even from the
cold,
dialogue. It's cold as hell.
Very clinical, yeah.
That's so funny. I love Wes Anderson. His shit is hysterical.
It is funny. I show it to my students sometimes, and it's one or the other. There's no middle ground. They're like, this is the worst, This guy sucks, or I love it,
Well, that's the mark, I think, of a great artist. Yeah. If someone's like generally like appreciated by everyone, I mean, I don't think the greatest artists in history really get that tag. It's usually like
it's tough. A
huge amount of love and then like a solid amount of hate.
Definitely, yeah.
Especially in music.
They're making choices. I mean, I think you got to make a choice. And if you make a choice, there are going to be people who don't like it. That's how it works.
Yeah, you have to have you have to inject a voice into your choice. And and everyone's voice is different, so it's naturally gonna put some people off.
Definitely.
How do you mentioned your students? So you teach high school students English and film, and I know this. Let's not even talk about trying to be a school teacher in a year like this, where you're just hoping that the fact that their camera is turned off in the virtual class means that they're just
they're alive.
They're behind there somewhere doing maybe something related to class.
Maybe.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I mean, you've got juniors and seniors. Oh Jesus, dude!
Yeah, all sorts of bad stuff happening.
I wasn't there even when I was there.
Right.
I can't imagine being like at my computer.
And everyone's so talking about that. I'm like, remember when you were 17? Like, throw a pandemic on top of that, and then make it at home. Like, it's hard for them,
Yeah, I mean, I see it even in my kids. They're much younger. They're not in high school, but it's super rough. I can't relate. I'm trying to find routine within it, because at the end of the day, as long as you have routine, that's an anchor. Yeah. Routine is an anchor.
You need it right now, yeah.
So how do you teach film, pandemic aside, this year aside, how do you teach film to high school students? Do they have to take the class, or is it an elective?
It's an elective, but only for the older kids, mainly because of content. So it's junior, seniors. We do about a movie a week. That's kind of the goal. And I try to pick kind of uniquely different movies that fit whatever topic it is I'm trying to go with. So maybe the first unit I'm doing like directors. So, I'll look at maybe Jaws, which is like super accessible. Spielberg kind of wrote for everybody type of deal, sort of.
It's great.
It's great. Yeah,
it's still great.
Yeah, and you could really look at like the director, because sometimes it's hard to see a director in a film, but like these are the choices he made. This is how he tells the story, whatever. And then I'll do something like Lost in Translation, which is like not very accessible for some people. It's quiet, it's really slow, and then I just move in those kind of directions. Like next movie, look at like say performance, and then we'll look at editing. And I just move them through the stuff of filmmaking using about 2 movies per topic, and then we watch it for it takes about 2-3 days in class. We'll have a seminar every week. We'll just talk about the movie, just like you do with your friends or something after you watch a movie.
So it's not overly academic.
It's not overly academic. I use movies instead of books. It's the same idea though. We're just digging into ideas. They write a script. They actually make a movie.
Oh wow!
By the end, which is awesome. So
they work in groups.
They can do whatever. Small groups usually happen. And we have a little film festival at the end. We all watch each other's movies and make fun of them because they're pretty bad. And we say it going in, I'm like, you guys are gonna make bad movies. It's you're 17. They're gonna be
Do you
terrible.
show them your first film?
No.
I think you should, Rob.
I do show them clips here and there.
Well, you probably selected the best clips. I think
they don't even know I make movies. Most of them. It's very funny. Like I have this whole. They don't know what's going on with me.
Well, I'm putting the pressure on you to. What film tends to be an eye opener, be it generally liked or loved or just generally like wow factor for whatever other reason amongst your students? What's like 1 or 2 films that jump out?
I think the things that surprise them, because they've seen a lot, and with technology too, they've grown up with access to things that we can't understand. So it's hard to shock them or surprise them or inspire them in like a quick way. So it's nice when you see it. I think Stand By Me typically works. You see a lot of emotion on their face, and eventually some of them even admit that they get like choked up, and that's nice. So Stand By Me hits them pretty hard. Napoleon Dynamite brings a lot of laughs, and that's always really fun.
Dude,
it's great to see him laugh.
That film is and like we were talking about before, I know some people who hate that film. I'd laugh just thinking about that film.
Absolutely.
I mean, the characters, Uncle Rico.
They commit very hard to that.
Everybody knows an Uncle Rico.
Yeah.
And it's Uncle Rico. It's like I have a poster on the wall of my mind of like, make sure you never end up like Uncle Rico.
Yeah,
Don't
cautionary.
Do not get romantic about the past.
No, living in 82.
Don't you wish you could just go back? No, Rico. We've got to move forward. Oh my God.
Archetype, man.
Feeding Tina.
Oh, Tina. It's great. No, they just play it so serious and so direct. That's why it's so brilliant. Like no one's having fun. That's not a comedy for them. Those actors they're playing serious. And
almost
that's why
like
it's so
in The
fun,
Office, like what people appreciated about when The Office came to America and Steve Carell started doing it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a film version of that in a way. Everyone's playing it so straight. Yeah. And it's so hysterical.
That's the best part of life too, when you see people who are so in it for one thing, and it is comical. That's why I sometimes laugh when people are really mad, because there's something about it that gets comical for me.
I feel like your father could have been in Napoleon Dynamite.
He's has an archetypal kind of dad energy, and my brother and sister. Thank God we had siblings, because like if it was just one of us, it would be terrifying. But we would just crack up sometimes. He'd be so mad, and then we would just like. And it would work for him too. I think he'd be like, all right, that was ridiculous.
Well, it's hard when your kids start laughing at you when you're at your most angry. That's been happening with me lately with my kids, and I'm just like, shit. The veil is gone. I just like turn away.
My dad was always throwing things in the garbage. That was his big threat. Like, it's going in the garbage. Like, why is your bicycle not on its kickstand or something? It's going to the garbage.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I throw shit away. That's my ultimate power in the house, that at any point I could throw something away. It's the only thing I still have.
It worked. We were always like, oh man, like in my mind it was like this garbage can. It was endless. It was just like my dad had a special garbage can I know about.
It's just a pit.
But it worked until I was like probably 13. Like it always held sway,
Well, it's backfired on me a little bit, because if something's missing in the house, and it's just genuinely missing because someone misplaced it or someone was not being careful, the first thought is that I threw it away. Oh boy, we just had a major, it's the universe.
Yeah, it's speaking.
Taylor, let me know if we're still filming. I'm going to assume we're still filming. I could still hear you, so that's good.
They think you threw everything out.
Yeah. That's their first thought. Yeah. Dad, slow down. Pretty sure you're not an organized person.
It might just be under something.
All right, Taylor said we're still good.
Okay.
Shout out to Taylor, who does all of our audio visual work for Through the Glass. Thanks, Taylor. You're always doing a great job. It's like a silent warrior, which you know all about, the people on the film and on productions that no one knows about. Sure, their name is in the credits if someone cares to read them, but they are what really make something come together.
It's mainly
thank you, Taylor. It's mainly those. That's 100% true. So what is it about Stand By Me? So we talked about it. I instantly was like, oh my God, I got to see that movie again. You're talking about kids who weren't even born.
Yeah, I think it's 86, I want to say. These kids were born like 2000.
Not even close to when they were born. Yeah, it wasn't even like it was close.
Yeah.
What are the themes? It's got to be the themes. What are the themes in the film that you think register with so many people, yourself and 16-year-olds?
They wrote a review of it, and a lot of them talked about two things came up. One of them was death. A lot of them were just, they're high school kids. I'm sure it's like adult, any human, it's a concept that you're always kind of processing. But I think the way that death is handled, and not handled in the movie, they really talked about that. Like how they went out to look for the body, this kid that dies, but really Gordy's resolving his own issues with his brother. And by the time he gets to the end, like they don't even need the body anymore. They're not trying to rescue this kid. They just do the right thing and they walk away. And the other part of it was transition, like childhood, leaving that all behind. A lot of them talked about like, oh, it was so weird when they left. They were like little kids. When they came back, they were like not. And it was only 3 days. And we talk about that a lot.
And they were younger. The characters were all younger than a student of yours. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I'm not sure how old they are, but they feel like 7th, 8th graders or something.
Yeah, in the 80s, you could still tell a story of like kids going out on a multi-day adventure.
Wouldn't have been weird.
It was not like, hey, like where are your folks? Like what's going on?
No, it was no big deal. Yeah.
How do 2 of these kids have knives? Like how's that happening?
They just have a sleeping bag and they go. No food. They make it work.
That's interesting. So yeah, I mean, kids that you're teaching, young adults you're teaching, they're going through that transition as well. And death really is.
It's the ultimate.
It's the ultimate.
It's the ultimate topic.
It's the ultimate topic. Yeah. It forces you to add meaning.
Yeah. Puts everything into relief.
And some people do that with religion.
Yeah.
Others do it with, realizing, okay, well, my time is finite and I need to do some good shit. Yeah. And other people do it in other ways, but it forces you to add meaning, or else what's the point? Which is fine too. Yeah. I have friends who are like, look, there is no point, and I'm just I'm just trying to stay as healthy as I can and not be a jerk.
Sure, that's fine.
That's fine too. Yeah. But yeah, it ultimately adds meaning.
I think for them too right now, like pandemic, the summer that just happened. There's a lot of stuff that they're confronting at a pretty young age. The election, everything. So it's a very simple story, and I think that's why it works so well. Rob Reiner just distilled the hell out of everything and just, here you go.
Well, he's great at that.
Yeah, there it is. There's your story, and they could take it down. They can palette that.
And then you pair that with everybody killed their performance in that. Every actor, and they weren't kids, much older than the kids they were portraying.
There's no excuse to have a bad kid actor. If you see that movie, you're like, no excuse. I don't care that you're 12. You should have a great performance.
There's a lot of weird kid actors out there. So many films where you're like, like it's scary because they're acting and maybe that's their personality. I'm not trying to be judgmental, but it's like
they're kids.
They're like a snarky 45-year-old.
You see that so much now. Yeah,
and you see that in a kid. And it gives me the willies a little bit. Maybe because I have children and I'm like, my God, please don't be that kid at some point.
Yeah, these kids are all who they are. They're honest. They're authentic. So yeah, that's why it's such a good movie too. Even like Corey Feldman, Will Wheaton, it's great.
Everybody kills
everyone. Yeah.
How do you choose an actor? How do you pick a physical and spiritual being to embody something that's in your head?
I mean, you go in with a character description. You're like, all right, the DJ, for example, for Shark River. You're like, all right, we want him to be, post 40s, probably still youthful. So like 50s, 60s, youthful guy. Someone in your head, you're like, kind of want like a Kevin Bacon-y type of guy or something. I don't know. We have like a loose idea of what they should sort of have. And then you go into the audition and it's wildly strange who shows up. because everyone shows up, and you want to see a bunch of people, and it's never the intention you go with based on your written character description. It's you just get a vibe off someone, and this guy Brian Kelly showed up, and we just looked at each other. And, yeah, it's easy. We knew it. He was the guy. It was like you do with most things. You just know, you just trust. And
I know Brian Kelly. Where's Brian from?
He lives in Chinatown, New York City guy.
Oh no, different Brian Kelly.
Different Brian Kelly.
I thought for a second because he does dabble in theater, so I'm like,
this guy does theater. I don't think it's him though. He knew Basquiat and epic stories. Came in the art world, punk kind of guy in the '80s, New York City stuff. Really fascinating guy.
Oh damn.
Yeah, really cool stories. And we shot him by himself. For all the scenes were alone, which is actually really hard. So we got a lot of time with him, and the stories he told of Basquiat and Julian Schnabel and the art scene in the 80s and Warhol. It was very strange and cool. Yeah.
How can people excuse me, how can people check out your work, what you're working on? Do you have let's promote it. Where can people go to check out what's going on in Rob Thorp's life right now?
Well, me personally, it's just Instagram. I just kind of use that now for everything. It's just easier. So it's just at RW Thorp, Thorp, and that's just snippets of everything that I'm doing, specifically the writing, and then Rucksack Films on Instagram. So
Rucksack Films.
Yeah, Rucksack_films. And that's Shark River. That's our kind of mothership that we post everything onto.
And I'd like to give a shout out to the Garden State Film Festival,
Definitely.
Just for being the Garden State Film Festival and running a lot of programs out of this area.
They're doing a great job.
And clearly did a good job making a good choice
I appreciate that.
on Best Feature Screenplay. I really look forward to seeing Shark River when it's ready. I really look forward to seeing everything when it's ready. Rob Thorp, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It was fun. Fun talking.
All right, brother. That's our show. Thank you.